Hello, welcome to Granada Reports, live with the latest across the northwest.
Hello, good to have you with us on the programme tonight.
She would have started to drown within seconds. The inquest opens into the death of mum of two, Nicola Bully.
The barrister defending nurse Lucy Letby strongly criticises the prosecution. He says the case against her is riddled with the presumption of guilt.
How little Seb's medical emergency could offer vital warning signs for parents and doctors. They call it puppy love. Have you got what it takes to guide a guide dog through its early years?
And in the weather, breezy today with something of a mixed week on the cards and feeling fresher. All the details coming up shortly.
First tonight, and the inquest into the death of Nicola Bully has been told she would probably have started drowning within seconds of entering the river in Lancashire where her body was found.
Nicola, a mother of two, disappeared while walking her dog on the banks of the River Wye on January the 27th.
The inquest hearing is being held at County Hall in Preston. Our correspondent Rob Smith has been there all day. Rob, some very sad evidence about Nicola Bully's final moments.
Yeah, Nicola's cause of drowning, the inquest behind these doors heard today the cause of death was drowning, and she would have been rapidly incapacitated in bitterly cold water. A pathologist who examined her body told the coroner that she found water in Nicola's lungs and in her stomach. She found dirt inside beneath her vocal cords, and she was asked by the coroner whether there was any indication, any evidence Nicola had been harmed, assaulted, any third-party involvement in her death. She said no, there wasn't. The mum of two vanished on that riverside walk back in January. Her dog and her phone found at a bench by the riverside. The phone still connected to a works phone call. A massive search ensued. Her body was discovered a mile along the river just over 3 weeks later. And a police diver involved in that search told the coroner today that the slope from the bench to the river was, in his words, steep. It ended in what he described as a cliff edge, and the temperature in the River Wye that day was 3.6 degrees. A world-leading expert in cold water shock then added that anyone going into water at that temperature would take a massive involuntary breath, and if they were beneath the surface, that breath would be full of water. It would prove lethal within 1 to 2 breaths. The inquest also had witnesses who heard a scream that morning. Not a scream they were alarmed by, though. It sounded like someone having fun, someone who'd just been jumped out on by someone else on the riverside path. They also heard from the passers-by who discovered Nicola's dog and her phone, one of whom recognised her family from the wallpaper photo on the phone. And the information from those devices, from her smartwatch too, closed the proceedings here today. The coroner being told that her smartwatch stopped recording steps at 9:30 that morning. It still recorded a heart rate for some time after, but police tests show that it could do that if exposed to moving water. Nicola's family sat through all of this hearing today. Her sister and her partner will give their own evidence tomorrow.
And Rob, the coroner said he would only take evidence from what he called reliable sources.
Yeah, he said he was not going to explore some of the theories that were shared on social media, and there were many of them at the time. He called it an unusual online commentary, and because of that, extra security has been put in place at this inquest to ensure it isn't disrupted. He's warned anyone who is thinking of disrupting it, that will be treated as contempt of court. They could go to jail.
OK, Rob in Preston, thank you.
Next, in the prosecution case against nurse Lucy Letby is, quote, fuelled by and riddled by the presumption of guilt.
That's according to her defence barrister, who's begun his closing speech as the nurse's trial draws to its conclusion at Manchester Crown Court.
The defendant, who's 33, is accused of murdering 7 babies and attempting to murder 10 others in the neonatal unit of the Countess of Chester Hospital between June 2015 and June 2016.
Our correspondent Mel Barham's at court now. Mel, the defence barrister very critical of the prosecution's case.
That's right, Mike. Today was the opportunity for the defence to challenge the prosecution's evidence against Lucy Letby. Addressing the jury directly, her defence barrister, Ben Myers KC, began outlining a long list of criticisms of that evidence. What struck me, he said, when listening to the prosecution case was that whatever Miss Letby had done or hasn't done, whatever she said or hasn't said, that made her guilty. He said it's as if the prosecution have a theory, and no matter what the evidence is or isn't, it is treated as to keep that theory going. It doesn't matter how inconsistent that theory is, everything is treated as evidence of her guilt. She's present when a collapse happens, guilty. She's not present or has just left the unit, guilty. He said if she signs for medical records or signs for others, guilty. A baby in her care doesn't show signs of deterioration, guilty. A baby does show signs of deterioration, guilty. He said what's really at work here is the presumption of guilt. The prosecution case, he said, is fuelled and riddled by it. And he asked the jury instead to consider the presumption of innocence. He said if senior doctors were so sure that she was up to no good and all eyes were on her, then why didn't they see anything? If those doctors are right and for a year did absolutely nothing to raise the alarm, that failure to do so to do nothing is staggering, he said. There is, he continued, evidence of suboptimal care, a neonatal unit understaffed and overstretched, and too many babies with too high care requirements. And he said there was plenty of evidence to show Miss Letby was a dedicated, well-trained nurse who raised the alarm when babies collapsed and cared for those babies day after day. We say the evidence is utterly inconsistent with an intention to kill, he said.
And Mel, the defence barrister, dealt with some evidence which the prosecution last week pointed to as key parts of their case.
That's right. Mr. Myers turned to lists given to the jury by the prosecution showing when staff were present during the collapses of each of these babies, which appears to show Letby present at every single baby collapse. But he told the jury that list isn't complete. There are at least 2, maybe 3 events when Lucy Letby wasn't on duty, and they are missing from that list. He said this is where the case theory begins to wobble. He also dealt with the notes found at Letby's home in Chester, which the prosecution say was a confession. Mr. Myers says they show a very distressed woman in a terrible state of anguish. He touched also on the Facebook searches that Letby made on the parents of some of the babies involved, which the prosecution say is evidence of her guilt. But he pointed out that there are many parents from this indictment that were never searched for. He's also highly critical of the prosecution's star witness, Dr. Evans, arguing he asked to be involved in this case, meaning he wasn't an independent or neutral witness, and that affects his credibility. Well, Letby denies murdering 7 babies and attempting to murder 10 others. Her defence barrister is expected to continue his closing speech for the next 4 days.
Mel at Manchester Crown Court, thank you.
And more of the day's news, and Greater Manchester Police are re-appealing for information about a sexual assault at a Harry Styles concert a year ago. Detectives have released this image of a man they want to trace in the crowd at Old Trafford Cricket Ground on the 15th of June last year. They've also appealed for mobile phone footage.
Next, a mother from Lancashire is raising awareness after her son needed urgent surgery for a potentially fatal build-up of water in the brain.
Doctors agreed to scan Victoria Wall's son Seb just to put her mind at rest, but the results showed the toddler had hydrocephalus and needed 4 operations.
His family say parents and health professionals need to be more aware of a child's head measurement, which helps diagnose the condition, as Andrew Fletcher reports.
You take it over there.
Watching this 2-year-old at play in the garden, there's no indication of the challenges Seb has faced in his young life. After a traumatic birth, his mum Victoria noticed he was slow to develop as a baby. At 9 months, he suddenly became very distressed and wouldn't stop crying. But it took repeated visits to the GP and an urgent care centre before Seb was admitted to hospital.
They said, right, well, we'll do a scan to put your mind at ease. And by that point, actually, he seemed to improve a little bit the day after. And I was thinking, oh God, have I made a fuss about nothing here? Like, is this going to be really embarrassing? Anyway, so they did the scan and they told me that day that he had acute hydrocephalus.
The diagnosis was life-changing for Seb and his parents. Over the next 6 weeks, he had 4 operations to remove the excess fluid from his brain and to fit a tube called a shunt, which drains the fluid away. The shunt saved his life, but it could block or fail at any time.
He's such a beautiful soul, and he's so joyous, and he's so full of life. It's one of the things that makes the diagnosis of hydrocephalus really hard to accept, actually, because you've always got that threat that something could go wrong.
About 1 in 770 babies are affected by hydrocephalus. It can be easily detected through monitoring the growth of a baby's head. But campaigners say many new parents and some health professionals don't realise how vital this measurement is.
We want more mandatory training, more awareness of why it's so important. And, you know, we want families to be empowered to go to their GP or to speak to their health professional and say, I'm a little bit worried about my baby. And they say, you know what, we'll measure the head as well, and we will plot it in the Red Book.
Victoria's joined the Get Ahead campaign to highlight the importance of head circumference measurements in a child's first year. The campaign's recently received the support of the Health Secretary Stephen Barclay, and Victoria's hoping the message is getting through.
The chances are most people that are watching this will never have to worry about it, and thank goodness they won't have to worry about it. But, you know, if you just box it off as another check that you forget about later, just make sure that it's done, because it really could, you know, save a life.
Andrew Fletcher, ITV News.
Strong message there. Now, time for a look at what's still to come on the ITV News at 6:30 with Gamal.
The Met Police names a 6th suspect in the murder of Stephen Lawrence 30 years on. It has also apologised for mistakes made in the original investigation. We'll have reaction from Stephen's father. Also ahead, an inquest opens to resolve the mysteries around the death of Nicola Bully. A pledge from a prince, William, on his mission to end homelessness. And another crack of the whip for Indiana Jones. Join me for those stories and more at 6:30.
I've never actually been to Glastonbury before, never mind played it. I've dropped our daughter off a few times. But yeah, and I thought, you know what, I need a new suit for that, that's for sure.
You looked so at home, but how nervous were you behind the scenes?
I know a few people, friends and what have you, who've actually played that stage, other artists, you know, and I don't care who you are. I think you've got nerves doing that, you know. I think even if you looked at Elton last night, he had a great gig. He went down a storm, you know, massive, enormous crowd to see him. But I'd have to say, I don't know this. I don't know the guy well enough, that's for sure. But I think he would have had some nerves, I would think.
I was going to ask you why you thought it had taken Glastonbury so long to invite you to perform, but then I heard Elton John say that was the first time they'd asked him, so you're in good company.
I had my 4 or 5 years back in the day and then kind of like slipped out the back door when no one was looking or cared. And then, you know, this last 10 or 15 years, I've been gigging again and slowly just ramping it up. We talked on air just before we went on there, just saying about the Peter Kay thing, which was, you know, opening for Peter at Manchester and obviously London as well.
I saw you in 2007 at the Peter Kay concert and you were amazing. And then you did seem to slip out of the headlines. What brought you back this time?
Yeah, I don't think I've ever lost the love of music. I think that's the important thing. I just don't love all the shenanigans that goes around it all the time, you know. And listen, I have no issue about promoting a record. That's the only way you get it heard, of course it is. But I just sometimes think when I was a lot younger, I just think a few warning signs went off, and not to get too heavy, but you see it with artists sometimes. The best example I can possibly give you right now is Lewis Capaldi. You know, he's really going through some stuff and he's been really brave about it and he's talked about it. He's been as open as he possibly can. And, you know, he seems like he's got that, you know, strength in him that he's going to conquer that for sure. But you just wonder sometimes what this business does to people, you know what I mean? And we all sometimes breeze through it with a smile on our faces, but just sometimes, you know, the nerves do get to people, the anxiety and all the rest of it. And I think I'm no different. And I think sometimes I've thought, that's enough for now.
You've mentioned your performance with Blossoms, that second set at Glastonbury, doing Smith's covers. Is there any chance we might see more of that?
Who knows? I think, to be honest, I think that's one of the wonderful things about us doing that is that we do it for the love of it. There literally isn't another reason. And I think we both bonded quite strongly over that love of those songs and that band. And there's something really super special about Smith's songs and the music and just everything.
Now, listen, it's been quite a week, hasn't it, with Glastonbury? There's a new album on the way and also an arena tour as well, and you're coming to the Northwest. Tell us about that.
When I play in what is technically my, backyard, which is obviously Manchester, and that arena, whatever it's called at the moment, it's been called a lot of things, that arena, but whatever it's called at the moment, and for me, Manchester and I dare say Liverpool, are they're both kind of quite deeply in my heart because it's where I'm from. It's still got a bit of the northern accent, I guess, and it's just, I'm a professional norther when I'm away from it, you know what I mean? So.
Well, we cannot wait to see you here in Manchester and Liverpool. Thank you so much for talking to us tonight.
Thank you.
Yeah, the ageless Rick Astley, who was an absolute gentleman, wasn't he?
He was, and he'd only been in the house for 20 minutes. He'd just got back. He was lovely. Now on to sports, and someone else who's never going to let us down. Chris, what have you got for us?
I see what you did there. That's brilliant. We have the start of another big week of boxing for you. She's already won 3 belts. Now Liverpool's Natasha Jonas returns to the ring on Saturday, hoping to become a world champion at 2 different weights. After an incredible 12 months in which she won 3 world titles, it's been a frustrating 2023 so far. But as David Chisnall explains, she's planning on channeling that frustration this weekend.
Letting loose and ready to roll, Liverpool's Natasha Jonas is limbering up ahead of her much-anticipated return to the ring. Not content with winning 3 world titles last year, she's now dropping down a weight division in pursuit of more.
Yeah, 4th world title in the spin. Been a bit of a slow start to the year, which has been a bit frustrating, but we got it off, and we got it off with a bang. So yeah, we were trying to capitalise on last year and how to make it bigger and better. And this is just the start.
Well, politics and postponements may have prevented Natasha from boxing so far in 2023, but she's not been skipping on the hard work. This Saturday she faces Canadian Candy Wyatt for the vacant IBF welterweight title in Manchester.
I've been training because I thought I was going to fight in March, then I thought I was going to fight in April, then it was May, then it was June, now it's July. So all that time I've been in the gym preparing, and obviously now it's come to the head, and I'm just like I will take my frustrations out on Saturday, and yeah, I just want to get back in the ring and get the ball rolling.
It's a huge achievement, especially where Natasha was 4 or 5 years ago. This will be her 4th title fight. Became world champion, unified world champion, the ring belt. Now she's dropping down in weight to challenge at 147. So she pulls this off to be a 2-weight world champion. It'll be unbelievable.
Now 39, Natasha had a stellar 2022, winning the WBC, IBF and WBO super welterweight belts, as well as becoming the first female fighter to be named Boxer of the Year by the British Boxing Board of Control. Despite being a history maker, her eyes are firmly focused on the future.
Once you've reached the goal, it's about pushing yourself a little bit further. Maybe the dream wasn't big enough, or maybe your vision at that time wasn't big enough. And I'm still enjoying it. I still think that I'm improving and learning everything and learning something new every fight. So as long as that's still happening and we're moving forward positively, then I'll keep going. I'm just going to ride it till the wheels fall off.
Well, with the wheels in motion for the champion's return, let's hope it's a ride with plenty more miles left yet. David Chisnall, ITV News, Manchester.
Yeah, good luck to Natasha this week. Now to football, though, and Preston North End say they are deeply saddened to hear of the death of former manager Craig Brown. The former Scotland boss, the last to lead them to a World Cup 25 years ago, took over from David Moyes at Deepdale in 2002. He left the club 2 years later. A very popular and likeable man who has sadly died at the age of 82. In cricket, Lancashire have a fight on their hands at the Oval in the County Championship. Surrey reached 360 in their first innings today. Lancashire currently 98 for 3. That's a lead of just 12 runs. But still 2 days left to finish the job.
Great stuff. Thanks. Thank you, Chris. Now then, it is a charity that was started way back in 1931 by 2 women out of a garage in Wallasey on the Wirral.
Yes, the Guide Dogs organisation has transformed the lives of more than 35,000 blind and partially sighted people.
Now, as Paul Crone reports, they need more volunteers to be puppy raisers.
Guide dog rookie Archie always enjoys his free time. But the tail's still wagging when his puppy raiser Lisa puts him through his paces once playtime is over. Our Archie has been with her since he was just a few weeks old, and over 12 months Lisa will provide the lovable Labrador with the vital foundation needed for his future role as a fully fledged guide dog.
He comes into hospital appointments with me, he'll go into dentists, we obviously go in shops, we'll take him on the supermarket. That starts very basic with just going in first, and then you'll progress to carrying a bag.
But anyone wanting to be a puppy raiser like Lisa from Preston should always be aware of one inescapable fact. The relationship isn't for life, and when the dog is ready, it's time to hand him or her over to someone in need of a guide dog, making an enormous difference to someone living with sight loss.
Yes, don't get me wrong, it's emotional. But the overwhelming feeling you'll have is pride, because you have made such a difference to someone's life in the end result, that you will create somebody will get a guide dog which will give them so much more independence.
Puppy raisers are a critical part of what we do here at Guide Dogs. Without them, we wouldn't have guide dogs, to put it quite simply.
Lisa hasn't time to dwell too much on handing over Archie when the time comes. She's also a fundraiser and a speaker for the charity, and has even won 2 local awards for her work.
What were you saying, Archie? Oh yeah, Archie's just been telling me that the charity is looking for fosterers in Liverpool, fundraisers in the Isle of Man, and what else? Oh, that's right, puppy raisers across Cumbria. Isn't that right, Archie?
We felt complete as a family. We have our own pet dog, you know, we didn't feel the need for anything else. And it wasn't until we got our first guide dog puppy that we realised that really that they were the missing jigsaw piece that we actually didn't know we needed to complete the puzzle. We thought we were complete, but with the guide dog and being part of the guide dog family, you definitely feel more complete.
So Archie and Lisa, remember, teamwork makes the dream work. Paul Crone, ITV News.
Oh, Archie's so wonderful, and if you've got what it takes to raise guide dog puppies, you can get more information right now on our website. That's itv.com/Granada.
Now for the weather, here's Emma.
Mum, wet wipes, toilet or bin?
Bin. Why?
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada weather.
Hello there, hope you've enjoyed your day and that you had a great weekend. Yesterday it was the hottest day of the year so far. The UK hotspot was Coningsby at 32.2 Celsius. The mercury peaked in Granada land at 27 Celsius in Rochdale, and 28 was the average across the north of England. That equates to 82 in Fahrenheit. You can see that temperatures are going to freshen up somewhat this week, and it'll be a lot more comfortable by night for sleeping. It will be rather changeable, however. There is some rain in the forecast at times, but generally not too windy and feeling, I think, pleasantly warm, although the humidity will alter from day to day. Today it was fresher, tomorrow the humidity is back. So then the jet stream is aligned west to east at the moment, occasionally dipping southwards, and when it does, it allows room for frontal systems to push through and to bring us some spells of rain. Generally warm colours there on the cards throughout this week. Rewinding to the detail then for the next few hours, 1 or 2 showers just keep going. It's been largely dry today, but just the odd one continues this evening, and then overnight dry and clear with cloud increasing from the west later in the night, the wind dropping out as well, and those temperatures a bit down on where they have been just recently. Here are your sunrise and sunset times for tomorrow. Sun's up 4:42, sets at 9:46. First thing, it's probably going to be dry and a bit cloudy, but it won't be long before bits of drizzle push in ahead of this spell of rain, which will be moderate to heavy at times. Also quite breezy across the Isle of Man, 20-mile-an-hour winds in the morning, maybe gusting to 30-35 later in the day. And temperatures not too impressive in terms of the way they look, but it will feel humid because lots of humidity, lots of dampness hanging in the air, and that low cloud as well. Wednesday, a pretty wet day really, with a front crossing northwest to southeast, but things should dry up by Thursday. Here's your pollen.
Cleaned up well.
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada weather.
Hello, summer. Piri sponsors ITV Pollen Count.
So then we are still in the peak of the grass pollen season. Also nettle pollen is peaking. Counts moderate in any showers, but they will be moderate to high over the next few days. That's it. You're fully up to date. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Emma. And that's just about it from us this evening.
Yes, tomorrow we visit the Lancashire village that's becoming a must-visit for food lovers with 3 more Michelin stars than Manchester.
Ooh, where's that, I wonder? Join us tomorrow to find out. Have a great night. Bye-bye.